The desert wind howled through the narrow valley as Lieutenant Marcus Reed pressed his back against the crumbling mud wall, his heart hammering against his rib cage. It was 3:22 a.m., and everything had gone catastrophically wrong. His 6-man SEAL team had walked straight into a perfectly orchestrated ambush, and now they were pinned down in what every operator dreaded most: a kill zone with no way out. Contact left. Contact right! Sergeant Tommy Vega's voice crackled through the radio, barely audible over the cacophony of gunfire echoing off the canyon walls. Marcus could see muzzle flashes erupting from at least a dozen positions surrounding them, turning the narrow pass into a deadly gauntlet of crossfire. They'd been sent to extract a CIA informant from a remote compound, but someone had leaked their route. Someone had wanted them dead. Marcus watched his teammate, Corporal Jake Morrison, drag their wounded communications specialist, Danny Chen, behind an overturned vehicle. Danny's face was pale, his hand pressed against his side, but his eyes were still sharp, still fighting. "We need air support," Marcus shouted into his radio, but the only response was static. They were on their own, trapped in a valley where cell signals went to die and satellite communications became unreliable ghosts. The enemy fire intensified, and Marcus felt the sting of rock fragments as bullets chewed into the wall inches from his head. He could see the cold calculation in this attack. The enemy had positioned themselves perfectly, creating overlapping fields of fire that made any movement potentially fatal. His mind raced through scenarios, each one bleaker than the last. They had maybe 30 minutes of ammunition left, and dawn was still 2 hours away. If they couldn't break out before sunrise, they'd be sitting ducks. "Marcus!" Vega's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Johnson's hit! We're losing our defensive perimeter." Marcus's stomach dropped. Petty Officer First Class. James Johnson was their heavy weapons specialist, the backbone of their firepower. Losing him meant losing their ability to suppress the enemy long enough to mount any kind of escape. He watched as Sarah Kim, their medic, low-crawled across 10 feet of exposed ground to reach Johnson, her movement swift and fearless despite the bullets kicking up dirt around her. That was courage, pure, undiluted, the kind that made ordinary people into legends. Then something extraordinary happened. A sharp crack split the air, different from the staccato rhythm of AK-47s and PKM machine guns. One of the enemy gunners on the ridge suddenly slumped forward, silent and still. Marcus froze, his tactical mind processing what he'd just witnessed. That wasn't friendly fire, they were all pinned down. But it wasn't enemy fire either. Someone else was out there, another crack. Another enemy combatant dropped, this one from a position that had been causing them the most trouble. The remaining fighters began shouting in Pashto, their voices carrying confusion and fear. A third shot rang out, and the machine gunner who'd been shredding their cover went silent. The enemy fire became erratic, unfocused, as the unseen shooter continued their methodical work. "Who the hell is that?" Vega breathed, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the kill zone. Marcus didn't know, but he wasn't going to waste the opportunity. "Kim, how's Johnson?" "He'll make it if we get him out of here in the next 15 minutes. Sarah called back, her hands working quickly to pack Johnson's wound. The mysterious sniper continued their devastating work, each shot precise and calculated, creating gaps in the ambush that moments ago had seemed impenetrable. Marcus made a split-second decision. "Vega Morrison, covering fire on my mark." "We're moving to that compound at 2 o'clock, the one with the blue door. That's our rally point." "That's 200 meters of open ground," Morrison protested, "and it's the only chance we've got. Our guardian angel is buying us time, and I'm not going to waste it." Marcus checked his magazine, his mouth dry but his hands steady. This was what all the training was for, making impossible decisions in impossible situations. 3, 2, 1, mark! Vega and Morrison opened up with controlled bursts, drawing return fire, while Marcus sprinted toward the compound with Chen supported between him and Kim. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, but he kept moving. Another crack from their mysterious benefactor, and an enemy fighter who'd been drawing a bead on them collapsed. They made it to the compound's wall, gasping and alive. One by one, the team bounded across the gap, using the covering fire from their teammates and the surgical precision of the unknown sniper. When they were finally all inside the compound's walls, Marcus did a quick head count. 6 went in, 6 came out, battered, bleeding, but breathing. Johnson was stable, Chen was conscious, and somehow, impossibly, they'd survived. As dawn began to paint the eastern sky in shades of purple and gold, Marcus climbed to the compound's roof and scanned the ridgeline where he estimated their savior had been positioned. Through his scope, he caught a glimpse of movement. A figure in traditional Afghan clothing carrying a long rifle disappearing into the rocky terrain like smoke in wind. "Did you see him?" Vega asked, climbing up beside him. "Just a shadow," Marcus replied. But whoever they were, they just saved 6 American lives. Later, after an extraction helicopter had finally picked them up and they were debriefing at the forward operating base, Marcus learned something that sent chills down his spine. The CIA informant they'd been sent to extract had a brother, a former Afghan National Army sniper who'd disappeared 3 years ago after his family was murdered by the same insurgent cell that had ambushed the SEAL team. The informant had sent word to his brother about the mission, and the brother had taken a position overlooking the valley, waiting. He knew they'd set a trap, the intelligence officer explained. He'd been tracking that cell for 3 years, waiting for the right moment. When he saw you were walking into an ambush, he made his choice. "Where is he now?" Marcus asked. The officer shook his head. "Gone, vanished back into the mountains." But he left a message with his brother. He said to tell the Americans that courage recognizes courage, and that some debts transcend borders. Marcus stood on the base perimeter as the sun climbed higher, thinking about the mysterious sniper who'd turned the tide of battle without asking for recognition or reward. In a war full of gray areas and moral complexities, this was something pure. One warrior helping another because it was the right thing to do. It reminded him why they fought, why they put their lives on the line in distant lands. Tommy Vega appeared at his shoulder, his arm in a sling but his spirit unbroken. "You think we'll ever see him again?" Marcus watched the mountains, ancient and eternal, keeping their secrets. Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe some heroes are meant to remain ghosts, reminders that good still exists in the darkest places. They stood there together as the morning light washed over the base. 6 men who'd faced death and lived to tell the tale, saved by a stranger who asked for nothing but had given them everything. In the brutal calculus of war, that kind of grace was the rarest currency of all, worth more than medals or glory, a reminder that humanity could still shine through, even in the deepest darkness.